Shabbat Shalom, friends. This is going to be my Shabbat reading for this week. It will come out Saturday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Time. As usual, assuming the internet holds out and I can get things uploaded. The trees turning colors around me. I'm just staring at trees turning colors around me, that's all. Before I forget, October 6th, which is coming up soon, is the next biblical feast or biblical holiday. It's Yom Kippurim or Kappurim, or I'll get it another day. This is going to be the Day of Atonement, or the Feast of Atonement. I will make a video on this, but essentially in Leviticus 23, after Yom Teruah, which was the Day of Shouting or the Day of Noise, something along those lines, the Day of the Shofar Blasts, essentially. 10 days after that is the Day of Atonement, and yeah, I will go into that in a video. And yeah, I'm wearing a flannel, and it looks like I got a stain on this flannel. There's something in my pocket. Trash. There's trash in my pocket. There's usually a pen in my pocket, but I left that sitting next to my Bible inside the house. Anyway, I'm having one of those days. It's just feeling a heaviness. One of those kinds of days. But we are in Leviticus 4. We will probably get through 4 and 5. Probably, maybe. Yeah, most likely, because it doesn't seem that long. And that'll just be my reading for the week. I will make a video soon on the next biblical holiday, the Day of Atonement, and get that out to you, hopefully before the holiday, because the last time I put the video out for Yom Teruah, the Day of Shouting, I did it like right up on the wire. Some people were celebrating it the day I recorded it, and some people did it the next day. I'm not really sure where the moon was. I wasn't paying attention to the moon. I let people that study that kind of thing do that for me, and I can look it up on Google. But I didn't. I just went by a biblical calendar I found from triumphintruth.net.org.com. I'm not sure. It's Triumph in Truth. Triumph in Truth. Yeah, that. If you go to their website, you can download their calendar as well and follow it. It keeps the Hebrew calendar, which in the Hebrew calendar, we are in the 7th month. So, yeah. Might be interesting for you to check out if you're interested in keeping the feasts. Pastor I follow from Triumph and Truth says you will, once you start trying to do these things, when you start trying to keep the Torah and you start, learning more about it, you will receive the want-to heart, I believe is how he puts it, the want-to heart, meaning you want to obey the commands of Yah, your Father in heaven, the creator of the universe. You want to obey the Most High, obey His Torah, His laws. Once you get the want-to heart, then you will receive the power to obey His laws, the power to keep Torah, keep the commands. You will receive the things you need to do this. And I've noticed this in my own life, and I guess my own testimony here is, the more I go into the Torah or the Torah, the more I learn about it, the more I do the things that it's commanding me to do, the more I am empowered to do those things. Like, just for example, I'll give you one example here. For Yom Teruah, for the Day of Shouting, the Day of Feast, I wanted a shofar for that day. I mean, the book told me I needed a trumpet or a shofar to blast, or just to use my voice. I'm a pretty loud person. I can yell and scream with the best of them, but I wanted the shofar, and I prayed about it. I was like, if it's your will, help me with these things, because these shofars, they're not the cheapest things when you're in the situations that most of us are in with economics as of late. But sure enough, it was only a day later I had the funds, and there it is. I have the shofar. I don't have it in the car with me, but I showed it in the last video if you're interested. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and read now. Leviticus 4. We left off at Leviticus 3. We are in the laws right now, where Yahweh is telling Moshe, this is what you do for this is what you do for that, and this is what's this, and this is what's that. He goes into all of it. He even goes into what is food. So we'll get into that in Leviticus 11, but not today. All right, Leviticus 4, verse 1. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, when a being sins by mistake against any of the commands of Yahweh, which are not to be done, and shall do any of them, if the anointed priest sins, bringing guilt on the people, then he shall bring to Yahweh for his sin which he has sinned a young bull, a perfect one, as a sin offering. And yeah, this goes right into the Day of Atonement. I mean, they do this in the book for sin offerings. They do this when they have sinned. And that is one thing that Yeshua took away from the Torah. He took away from us. He didn't take away from the Torah, as he says. He doesn't take anything away from the Torah. So I misspoke there. But what Yeshua did for us is he took away the need to sacrifice an animal for our sin, because he was the sacrifice for our sin. So that is something you need to keep in mind when you're reading through the Torah, is there's a lot you can't do in here. I mean, there's over 600 some odd laws. There's a lot of them you cannot do. It's just impossible. But there are a lot you can do. It's something like 200 of them you can still do. And they're not hard. It's not easy. Most of it's just what not to do. I mean, the majority, I'd say, is what you shouldn't do. But there are a lot of things you are commanded to do. One being keeping the Sabbath. You are commanded to not only keep the Sabbath, but to guard the Sabbath. And I do these readings, and I do them, a couple of days or a day before the Sabbath, and then they are uploaded that day. And I don't pay attention to my YouTube at all on the Sabbath unless I'm reading or studying. I'm not reading, but studying. Studying the Word here. And then on Shabbat, I will be on YouTube watching some of the teachings that I follow that, go along with this. And yeah, it helps me a bit. But other than that, I'm not looking at my own channel and things like that. Or so if you make comments and stuff on my videos during Shabbat, which is on Saturday, it's from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. If you make comments, I probably don't see them. If I do see them, I'm probably not responding to them. So, until the next day. I completely lost where I was. If the anointed priest sins, bringing guilt on the people, then he shall bring to Yahweh for his sin, which he has sinned, a young bull, a perfect one, as a sin offering. And he shall bring the bull to the door of the tent of appointment before Yahweh, and shall lay his hand on the bull's head, and slay the bull before Yahweh. And the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood and bring it to the tent of appointment, and the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle some of the blood 7 times before Yahweh in front of the veil of the set apart place. This is another one of those things we can't do right now. We don't have a high priest. We don't have a temple. 7. And the priest shall put some of the blood on the horns of the slaughter place of sweet incense before Yahweh, which is in the tent of appointment, and pour all the blood of the bull at the base of the slaughter place of the ascending offering, which is at the door of the tent of appointment. Then he takes all the fat of the bull, as the sin offering, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat which is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendages on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. Now, there's a lot in the last, I think it was in Leviticus 3, where I read all the fat is for Yahweh. That is in the context of the temple and the offerings. It's not saying, if you got a little fat in your steak that you're trying to eat here, as long as it's a kosher steak from a kosher animal, that you're sinning by eating that. That is only if the fat was intended for Yah, for a sacrifice, for atonement, for whatever of the ascending offerings, whatever it may have been. Right now, there's only certain fats we cannot consume, and it says which ones. We read that last week. It's the ones around the appendages and the kidneys. That's what we're reading right now. And that's really a type of fat you wouldn't want to try to eat anyway. It's just, no, you wouldn't want it. I think I was at 10. Maybe I was at 9. 9. And the 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendages on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys, as it was taken from the bull, and the slaughtering of peace offerings. And the priest shall burn them on the slaughter place. So as it was for the peace offerings, which is what we were reading last week. And the priest shall burn them on the slaughter place of the ascending offering. But the skin of the bull and all its flesh with its head and legs, its entrails and dung, all of the bull he shall bring outside the camp to a clean place where the ashes are poured out, and burn it on wood with fire. Where the ashes are poured out, it is burned. So you don't do this in your home or in your tent or in your neighborhood or in your, your village, whatever. You take it outside the camp or outside the village and you burn it there. Why? Probably because it's not good. It's not good for you to inhale that kind of thing. I mean, you're talking about the flesh and the hair and the dung. I mean, yeah. 13. And if the entire congregation of Israel strays by mistake, and the matter has been hidden from the eyes of the assembly, and they have done against any of the commands of Yahweh, which are not to be done, and shall be guilty, when the sin which they have sinned becomes known, then the assembly shall bring a young bull for the sin, and bring it before the tent of appointment. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands on the head of the bull before Yahweh, and the bull shall be slain before Yahweh. And the anointed priest shall bring some of the bull's blood to the tent of appointment, and the priest shall dip his fingers in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Yahweh in front of the veil. Sound familiar? It should. And put some of the blood on the horns of the slaughter place, which is before Yahweh, which is in the tent of appointment, and pour all the blood at the base of the slaughter place of the ascending offering, which is at the door of the tent of appointment. And he takes all the fat from it, and shall burn it on the slaughter place. And he shall do with the bull as he did with the bull as a sin offering, so shall he do it. And the priest shall make atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven them. And he shall bring the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. And it is a sin offering for this assembly. Now remember, these are sins that were done by accident. 22. When a ruler sins and by mistake has done against any of the commands of Yahweh his Elohim, which are not to be done, and shall be guilty of, or if his sin which he has sinned is made known to him, then he shall bring as his offering a buck of the goats, a male, a perfect one. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the goat, and shall slay it at the place where they slay the ascending offering before Yahweh. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the slaughter place of the ascending offering, and pour its blood at the base of the slaughter place of ascending offering. Whew. And burn all of its fat on the slaughter place, like the fat of a slaughtering of the peace offerings. And the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. And if any being of the people of the land sins by mistake by doing against any of the commands of Yahweh, which are not to be done, and shall be guilty, or if his sin which he has sinned shall be made known to him, then he shall bring as his offering a female goat, a perfect one, for his sin which he has sinned. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and slay the sin offering at the place of the ascending offering. And the priest shall take some of its blood with its finger, and shall put it on the horns of the slaughter place of the ascending offering, and pour all the blood at the base of the slaughter place, and remove all its fat, as fat is removed from the slaughtering of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn it on the slaughter place for a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And the priest shall make atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. If he brings a lamb as his sin offering, he brings a female, a perfect one, and he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and slay it as a sin offering at the place where they slay the ascending offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the slaughter place of the ascending offering, and pour all the blood at the base of the slaughter place. Then he removes all its fat, as the fat of the the lamb is removed from the slaughtering of the peace offerings. And the priest shall burn it on the slaughter place according to the fire offerings to Yahweh. So the priest shall make atonement for his sin that he sinned, and shall be forgiven him. That's a lot of rinse and repeat, right? Do it this way, but do it the same way. But do it with this and do it the same way as this. And it's a lot of that. And there's reasons for this. It's so people can build essentially the muscle memory for that. I mean, essentially, right? I'm drinking sweet tea. Just so you're aware. It's sweet tea. Because it's too late in the day for coffee. Not really. It's never too late for coffee. But I didn't feel like making coffee. And sweet tea is the next best thing in my opinion. It has caffeine in it and it's sweet. And yeah, I like to crack my knuckles a lot. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do 5. We will get through 5 and that'll probably be the end of it, because we're already running to about the length of my normal videos because I've been talking too much in this one. So let's get to it. Leviticus 5 verse 1. And when a being sins in that he has heard the voice of swearing, and is a witness, or has seen, or has known, but does not reveal it, he shall bear his crookedness. So if somebody sees somebody sinning and he's like, I didn't see a thing, then he shall bear his crookedness. Or when a being touches any unclean matter, or the carcass of an unclean beast, or the carcass of an unclean livestock, or the carcass of unclean creeping creatures, and it has been hidden from him, he is unclean and guilty. Now there's a lot of the uncleanliness, and these are some of the things we can do. If we bury our dog, which is something I had to do recently, and touch the carcass of an unclean animal, which a dog is, you don't eat them, they're unclean to you, then you are unclean until evening. There's a certain way to cleanse yourself, but in this particular instance, it has been hidden from him, he is unclean and guilty. Or when he touches uncleanliness of man, any of his uncleanliness by which he is unclean has been hidden from him, when he shall know it, then he shall be guilty. So if he's done something, he's going to figure it out eventually. If he didn't realize it right away, he'll realize it a little bit later. He'll make sure he realizes it. Believe me, he will. And once you realize it, then you are, unclean and guilty. And there's ways to fix this, and we'll get into that. Or when a being swears, speaking rashly with his lips to do evil or to do good, whatever that is, a man swears rashly with an oath. Now keep that in mind. We're not talking about cussing. We're not talking about dropping F-bombs here. We're talking about swearing oaths. And just read it. It says it right here. Swears rashly with an oath. Or talks about doing evil, like, I'm gonna whoop that dude, blah 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 blah, because he did this and blah 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 blah, and I'm gonna rip his head off, and all that other things that people like to say in traffic to me, or maybe me that likes to say in traffic. Those are bad. But if it has been hidden from him, when he shall know it, then he shall be guilty of one of these. And it shall be, when he is guilty of one of these, that he shall confess that in which he has sinned. So you confess what you have sinned, and shall bring his guilt offering to Yahweh for his sin which he has sinned, a female from the flock, a lamb or a female goat as a sin offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin. So this is one of those, I messed up, I confess I messed up, I'm going to have to do this because I messed up. That's one of those. And if he is unable to bring a lamb, then he shall bring to Yahweh, he who has sinned, 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a sin offering and other for an ascending offering. Now just imagine, in today's age, if you had to do this and you don't have, lambs, goats, bulls, and all this other stuff, and so your only other option are turtle doves or pigeons. Can you imagine the people climbing roofs and things and laying pigeon traps and trying to catch pigeons? I just have this image of in my head, people chasing birds around. It's funny. It's funny to me. All right, verse 8. And he shall bring them to the priest, who shall bear near that which is for the sin offering first, a nib off its head from its neck, but not sever it. And he shall sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the slaughter place, and the rest of the blood shall be drained out at the base of the slaughter place. It is a sin offering. And he shall prepare the second as an ascending offering, according to the right ruling, and the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin which he has sinned, but it shall be forgiven him. So these are the things that, I did it, I confessed I did it. These are, some of the things that you do it and you don't realize it immediately, and you're like, oh man, now I gotta do this. Sorry, I did this, so here I'm gonna have to do this. This is, I'm saying this a lot, but that is what it is. Essentially, if you're sinning by mistake, you have to atone for it. If you're sinning and you don't realize it at first, but you do realize it soon after, you have to atone for it. You can still be forgiven these things. There are things you can't be forgiven for. Keep that in mind. 11. But if he is unable to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he who has sinned shall bring for his offering 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a sin offering. So these are the people that couldn't catch the birds. He puts no oil on it, nor does he put any frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. And he shall bring it to the priest, and the priest shall take his hand filled with it as a remembrance portion, and burn it on the slaughter place according to the offerings made by fire to Yahweh. It is a sin offering. He's burning the fine flour, not his hand. And the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin. He has sinned in any of these, and shall be forgiven him. And it shall be the priest's, like a grain offering. So the priest, you got to feed your priest, right? So he gets to keep some of the things that you bring as offerings. And this is kind of like tithing. Kind of like it. Essentially tithing is doing the same thing when we tithe to our pastor or to the whatever church that a lot of people still attend. I don't. Then when you tithe, that is to help feed the pastor, the pastor's family, keep the church from falling down, upkeep and such. And essentially, when they're making these offerings, there was always a portion that was given to the priest for the offerings to Yahweh, because the priest needs to eat. 13. And the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin that he has sinned in any of these, and it shall be forgiven him. And it shall be the priest like a grain offering. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe. The Father is speaking to Moshe, saying, when a being commits a trespass and has sinned by mistake against the set-apart matters of Yahweh, then he shall bring to Yahweh as a guilt offering a ram, a perfect one from the flock, with your valuation in shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, as a guilt offering. All right, so you're guilty, you got to pay a guilt offering. This is, you're paying for it. Paying for your sins. This is where the term comes from. You got to pay for your sins. Well, Jesus died and paid for our sins. Well, he didn't pay everything, because there are some sins that even Yeshua does not forgive. Read your book. It's there. And he shall make good for the sin that he has done against that which is set apart, and shall add 1/5 to it, and give it to the priest. And the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and it shall be forgiven him. And when any being sins and has done which is not to be done against any of the commands of Yahweh, though he knew it not, and he didn't know it, yet he shall be guilty, and shall bear his crookedness. Then he shall bring to the priest a ram, a perfect one from the flock, with your valuation as a guilt offering, and the priest shall make atonement for his mistake he committed unintentionally, though he did not know it, and it shall be forgiven him. It is a guilt offering. He was truly guilty before Yahweh. So, that's the end of 5. I'm going to stop there because I'm starting to stumble my words a little bit. And, yeah. But there was a lot of, instruction through the first parts of Leviticus of what you do if you accidentally do something you shouldn't be doing. We are going to get into what you do if you knowingly do something that you shouldn't be doing. And this is where a lot of people get hung up on Torah. Well, I can't do this. I don't have bulls and goats, and I don't want to be, cutting heads off of pigeons and all that. You don't do that no more. You don't do that currently. I shouldn't say no more, because there is very likely going to be a time when Yeshua returns that we will do these things again, because they were still done when he was alive, and he kept the Torah perfectly. That was his purpose on earth, was to show you how to do it and do it perfectly. Now, that being said, we're not slaughtering anything and ascending offerings with blood and all that anymore currently, because, well, we don't have a priest, and because the blood of Yeshua took care of that for us. So, it is what it is right now. But there may come a time, there probably will come a time, where you will do these things again. And that's why it's in here. And you really need to read. You really, really need to read. You need to read it from cover to cover and understand what it takes to be saved. Because you don't just pray a prayer to Jesus and be saved. That's not how that works. It doesn't say that nowhere in this book. Nowhere does it say that. Not one single place. You don't just believe on his name and be saved. The Gentiles were instructed, yes, believe. Believe on his name. Believe that he died and believe that he returned. And he died for your sins so that you didn't have to. And what else? What was next? Does anybody know the next command they were given? This is from the book of Acts. I believe it was Paul or Peter or Paul that said it. And after they, believe on his name and abstain from blood and all these other things they're not supposed to be doing, whoring blood and, those, I got it wrote down. My brain's foggy right now. I'm having one of those days. But what you do next is you go to the synagogue. You go to the temples. There was a synagogue, essentially, or a temple in every city teaching the Torah in every city in that time when they were saying those things in the books of Acts to the Gentiles. So what did you do after you believed on Yeshua? You went and you learned the law. The law, Yeshua himself, I shall not take one jot, one tittle, not one dot, not one little piece of scribbly ink from the Torah until all be done. Well, guess what? All has not been done. And that's going to be the end of this one. I am James, and I appreciate you watching, and he appreciates you watching. This is his channel, not mine. This ain't my channel. I do what he wants on this channel from this day forward. I still have a channel called Grim Survival. It still exists. And I will do things that I feel like doing on there eventually, sooner or later. I'm going to do some camping here sooner or later. But anyway, that's not this video. Shabbat Shalom. See you later.